I will kind of give you my strategic overview and then a little bit about the task forces. They are still en route. I'm still based out of the state of Florida, Emergency Operations Center in Tallahassee, working in preparations for the operational phase to assist and sending the task forces in, coordinating that element of how they will be deployed throughout the state of Florida as needed, or whether they are dealt to another state within the region 4, which covers the lower southeastern half of the U.S., or possibly Oconus, which is offshore continental United States. Preparations begin, as you saw on the weather today. The storm kind of shifted. Irma decided to go to make a more westerly track, which has affected some of the contingency plans that were put in place to deploy some of the USAR teams. And we are working to find some other plans to insert them kind of behind the storm from the southern tip of Florida, the Keys, Marathon, into Miami, and then up and follow the storm as it moves its way from south to north. Working with all assets have been provided to facilitate that, whether it's our Department of Defense, or we're using naval or airframes from the Air Force, etc., to be able to get individuals on ground and working. Nebraska, they spent last night in Tupelo, Mississippi. They got, as you all know, got launched out of Lincoln fairly late the other night, and then did a considerable amount of driving, so they rested up. And when I just spoke with them a few minutes ago, they were just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, and they are en route to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida for staging. So they're all in good spirits. They all were able to get a good night rest after driving all night and throughout the day. They were able to stay within a hotel, get some decent food before coming into theater here, which will put them in, like I say, roughly around early afternoon into the Eglin Air Force Base facility. So kind of the nickel update, if you will. So.
Any questions?
How long do you anticipate the task force being in Florida?
Well, right now, I think we're playing the winds and the storm coming in. It's my understanding the storm is going to come through the South Florida region within the next 24 hours, start to come in and work its way. So we will hold all task forces in area of a safe haven, a hardened structure, such as Eglin Air Force Base, or some of the others are held in a theater closer to the Miami area around Orlando. But they will more likely stay there and let the storm pass until it's safe to launch them. Most aircraft will not fly with 40-knot wind speeds, and so being able to move them, if need be, via an airframe is some safety consideration, so time will have to go there. So I would venture to say no more in the next 48 to 72 hours as the storm makes its way up through Florida and then into the more the center of the U.S. or continental U.S. So a couple, 3 days of, I don't want to say hurry up and wait, but at least we have them close in theater and they're 1,000 miles away.
Are you anticipating?
Oh, was somebody talking?
Yeah, that's okay. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how does it appear that Florida, your mission in Florida, is going to differ from that of Houston? Is it a different approach? Is it different just with the velocity of the storm?
Yeah, Houston had, as most hurricanes come in, and I'm with y'all. I'm from, now I'm saying y'all like I've been down south quite a bit. But hurricanes come in and they tend to move. They drop range and winds. They're fierce storms, but they're usually gone within a 24-hour period as they work their way up. Houston storms seem to dump a considerable amount of rain as the hurricane stalled out right above the Houston area, dumping that massive amount of 50-plus inches of rain there. So they're not anticipating that it will stall out over Florida, but just the violence. And I saw just as I was dialing up, it was downgraded to a Category 3 with potential back to a 4 here shortly. So it's the velocity of the winds and the rains is going to do a considerable amount of damage. And it could be from coast to coast of the peninsula of Florida because the storm is that wide. So more of a destruction from wind velocity versus a destruction of flooding. One thing to be concerned about is Florida sits at a sea level and is very few feet above sea level. And when you hear the storm surge talk and then upcoming in, as well as you look at tidal shifts in the Florida and South Florida area that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet, that puts a considerable amount of water inland, which then causes a lot of people to be, they're out on an island. There's no accessibility to get to them, so on and so forth. So the tidal surge is definitely a concern of how far water comes in, and then being low at sea level, there's no quick way for water to drain. It will just pool there and become part of the sea, if you will.
Do you anticipate the same job that you've been doing, basically rescue efforts and things of that sort that the task force was doing back in Houston?
I think they will do a considerable amount. Houston was a lot of water-based and boat-based operations. I think this storm, just due to the velocity of the winds, will have some water-based operations to it, but I think I anticipate a lot of land-based search or wide area search as the high winds, which I would couch to being like a tornado, would come through, adding destruction to it. So the search element on dry land and wide areas could be a piece that was not so much in consideration during the Houston operation.
Now on the east side and the west side. And Chief Cabinet, what are you doing in the last few days while you've been there?
So as part of the incident support team, kind of like Houston, we have oversight or management and coordination of all the federal assets that are coming in. So as all the task forces come in that are either being redirected to Puerto Rico, St. John, St. Thomas, or the state of Florida, as well as covering the Georgia and South Carolina areas, should the storm go that way, within one of the federal regions, which in this case is Region 4, I'm helping to coordinate the federal use of our response into the state of Florida. So we work closely with the Department of Defense, the National Guard, the State Fire Marshal in Florida, the incident management team that's in place is trying to break up Florida into more manageable parts so they can deploy state search and rescue, federal search and rescue, and other teams that have come from other states. 8 task forces are currently assigned to the state of Florida for their usage after the storm comes through. So it's a operational coordination role of those assets with all of the pertinent players at the state level to get people in theater and get boots on the ground to be able to do great work.
I have a question. Can you talk to us about what it's like being on the ground after a disaster like the ones we've been seeing? You guys mentioned yesterday, you guys are working 19-hour days sometimes, but what is it really like just being on the ground responding to these type of things?
Well, it's definitely a sense of fulfillment that you have the training, the equipment, and most of the opportunity to be put in an area that you can assist others, especially when it's tiered and the team performed that way as they were in Houston in life-saving missions that if they were not there to intervene on that individual's behalf, they truly would have perished. So it's a sense of self-fulfillment. I think even though you might be working long days in austere environments, not having all the creature comforts we have at home, it's that fulfilling aspect of being able to make that difference that makes the day not near as long as it should be. It makes it a little bit easier to get up when you're tired, a little bit more ease and able to perform your mission the next day. So it truly is, I think, and I probably could speak on behalf of all of the members from Lincoln, Omaha, Papillion, and the civilians that make up the task force. They keep engaged, and you can tell that by the repeat number of individuals that are out on the second mission this time, is that sense of fulfillment that they get, that they have the training, the equipment, and opportunity to go forth and do great things.
Do you worry about the safety of the people working down there?
Not at all. I think there's we roll out the task force with 2 safety officers. We have, and the medical component is attached as well. And then at the command and control level where I'm at, we also have additional safety officers, and we are ordering up more depending on geographically how wide this event is. And so safety officers, physicians, medically trained people are there to provide updates all the time. We get them through the state level, which is why we put individuals at various aspects of the military, the state, and the local level so that we can kind of get in tune with what might be some of the safety issues and hazards within their own specific areas. And all that information is then fed to the task forces, so as they make their operational plan for the day, they're well aware of any safety considerations from maybe it's a petroleum plant here, a chemical plant there, or in this case, displaced South Florida, snakes, crocodiles, wildlife, and that kind of stuff. So no stone is really left unturned. All that information is there so that the teams can make a really good risk assessment when they get to the mission tasking level.
Ian, I have one more question. Nebraskans are going to, of course, want to help in some way, in whatever way they can after this. Is there anything that you're letting people know about how they can help or even help your team directly?
I think I would advise that anybody to direct any of their goodwill and intent, their help and assistance through one of their own credible agencies, if you will, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, their local civic organization, church or religious affiliation, and kind of go that route. The task force themselves, getting assistance to them in the theater is difficult at best. And I think they're very self-sustainable as it is, and they're provided for very well. So I would encourage anybody and everybody that wants to assist in this effort. It's the folks that are going to be affected down here that live in the Florida area and work through their own various agencies to fulfill that need to provide a service to them.
Chief Davenant, what are you seeing in terms of shortages, or what are you hearing about shortages of gas and other necessary items?
The line at a Walmart store I just drove by because I was heading to another meeting was, I would say, 2 miles long. It took me 5 gas stations at 5 o'clock this morning to make sure that I had the vehicle that I'm assigned to was topped off with fuel because they are running out. You're beginning to see people around in Grand Island and way north of South Florida around businesses trying to fill water bottles outside yard spigots and 5-gallon water containers and stuff. So there's a lot of the evacuees move their way north and move into hotels or any place they can. Parking lots are becoming campgrounds. You see a lot of motorhomes and fifth wheel campers type stuff in big concrete parking lot structures like a Walmart, a Costco, those type of stores that have a big concrete footprint. So definitely an influx of traffic, which is causing the commodities, consumables to be in short supply even in the area here, which is supposedly outside of the line, but as this moves west, we may be getting wet here as well in high winds.